losing jobs happens all the time. Tim Ferriss, I think he got like fired from like all his jobs.
Tim Ferriss did get fired from all his jobs.
Your hosts are here, Sammie and Michelle. By the end of this podcast, you'll know them well. Adulting, navigating the journey of life. Careers to relationships, pain and strife. Put down the rule book. Rethink the status quo. If there's another direction you wanna go, find purpose, passion and mastery in all that you do with Status Post Adulting.
Hey, Status Post Adulting family. This is Sammie
And Michelle.
And you're listening to our episode about what to do if you lose your job, if you get fired, or if you get laid off, or if you just leave.
That's right, Sammie. We decided to chat about this today because if you're listening to this when it comes out, it has been layoff season. Feels like every season this past year has been layoff season, but my industry, tech, has been hit really hard. About 200,000 people in tech have lost their jobs. It's big companies. It's trickling down. It's so many other companies outside of that. So we thought we would do an episode on what to do in those situations, either how to prepare if it's something that you're worried about, or how to handle it if it's something that you're going through right now. I can definitely relate. I lost my job a couple of years ago, and so I know that it's really stressful, and I think that there are little things you can do to help ease some of the stress.
Yes, whether you are going through a layoff or losing your job, or you are thinking that something might happen, or if this is irrelevant to you and then later one day it's relevant, this episode is for you.
Let's get into it, Sammie.
Michelle and I read an article called What to Do After Being Laid Off by Marlo Lyons in the Harvard Business Review. In this article, Marlo goes through different tips and techniques to use when you lose your job. And I think they're applicable for everybody, no matter what the reason is for losing your job.
Yeah, exactly, Sammie. We loved some of her tips, and then we had some of our own that we sprinkled in as well. So hopefully it's helpful to you, or if you know somebody going through this, definitely send them this episode.
Exactly, Michelle. One of the first tips that she had, which we completely agree with, is to breathe.
Great reminder.
Yes, it may be obvious because you always gotta breathe. But this is really important because when you first end your relationship with your job for whatever reason, there is just so much momentum behind that. There's so much emotion behind that. And it can be easy to just like try to find something else to cling on to so that you don't have to sit with what's going on. And I think it's really important to take a moment to actually breathe.
It's so true, Sammie. Especially since in a lot of different situations, I know for mine personally, when I was let go from my job, it was coming for about 6 months. And so I was super stressed out. I was very anxious. I didn't have a lot of time to just check in with my mental health. And I think that's so important to do because it is stressful. And have some self-compassion. Understand that it has nothing to do with you or who you are as a person, no matter what happened. And take that time and make sure you show yourself some care. Be mindful, maybe journal, do a gratitude list. These things can sound so simple, but they really do make a big difference, especially in a time like that.
Yeah, Michelle. I think when we're working, we get into such a jobby mindset. And I know for me, when I left my last job, I took a month off before starting this job. And I had this attitude that I was going to do all these things. And then I'd be kind of annoyed that my day would get like messed up by little things and it wouldn't go as productively as I hoped. And I think we all get into the jobby mindset, like I mentioned, where we are in that job attitude. We have that idea that like we're supposed to be doing something every single minute for like 8 hours a day or else we're not productive. And when you leave work, that completely changes.
Productivity is a key word there, Sammie. I think that whether or not you decide you're going to go right back into the workforce, or you're going to take a little bit of time off, it's important to deprogram yourself from thinking, hey, I have to work a 40-hour work week, even if that means I'm looking for a job. So a lot of people I've noticed will beat themselves up if they're not spending, 8 to 5 looking for a job. And the truth is that you don't necessarily need to spend that kind of time looking for a job. Some days you might, if you have like interviews or you're prepping, and other days you'll send out a few applications and that's okay. I remember talking to a friend who was saying to me, oh, I feel like I haven't been doing anything. I haven't been looking hard enough for a job. And I was like, didn't you have 8 interviews last week? And she did. And so I just think that we can get so hard on ourselves. And it's not like you have to replace the job that you are working with full-time job searching. The 40-hour work week is arbitrary. Fill your time the way it naturally fills itself. And don't beat yourself up if that doesn't line up with a normal, again, 8 to 5 work week.
Exactly, Michelle. And if you listener were afraid we were going to stay up in the woo-woo clouds and not give you practical advice, you're wrong. This is Status Post Adulting. We're here to help you. And tip number 2 is from me and Michelle, and that is to talk to HR, Human Resources.
This is huge, Sammie. Every time I've left a job, whether I chose to or whether I was let go, I have always had a conversation with my human resources representative. And this is important for a few different reasons. I don't care how familiar you think you are with all of your policies. When you lose a job, there's like so many things you have to think about. And so I like to make a list of questions, get on their calendar, and chat with them if I can. What does my health insurance options look like? What do my 401k, all of these different things look like? They can actually answer a lot of those questions for you. Human Resources is trained to handle these situations. And so this is a great time to, before you leave your job, make sure you get their email and just at least try to ask to get some time to speak with them.
It's so true, Michelle. Literally get their email or their phone number or both, because you will probably have to contact them. Whether it's about fees for your retirement accounts, information about transferring your retirement accounts, changing your address in their system, if you're a medical professional, a copy of your malpractice insurance for all the time that you've worked there, you're going to have things that you need from them and you want to make sure you get them.
On top of that, talk to every bank associated with your corporate funds. So what I mean by that is your 401k, your health savings account, your HSA, your FSA. Call each of those banks specifically because they do such a good job of answering your questions on, hey, are there going to be any fees? Do I need to roll this over? What are the things that I need to think about now that I've lost my job? They can give you insight into any kind of changes you need to make. A good example is actually when I left my last job, my human resources person, I don't know if she got it wrong or what happened, but she told me that I would have to immediately move my 401k money. Like I'd have to roll it over into something else. And so I actually called my bank who has my 401k, and the person actually confirmed to me that I could keep it with them indefinitely, and my company actually didn't move anything over. They paid the fees indefinitely. And so who knows why that information was wrong, but I was able to confirm with my actual bank that I could keep my money where it was and I wouldn't be penalized for it. So it's just good to talk to everybody. People know their lane the most. They know their specific job, bank, etc. the most. So if you lose your job, put a morning to the side and say, I am going to call all of these people because I need to figure out what's going on with my money.
Yeah, Michelle. And this HR stuff includes health insurance. If you're not from the United States, you can probably tune out. But if you're from the US, health insurance is super important, and it's weirdly like one of the most important things that happens after you leave your job.
Well, health insurance is connected to your job, which is why it's important.
Yes, connected to your job and then disconnected from your job.
And then you lose it, which sucks. But there's a lot of things to consider. For example, you have the option of doing something like COBRA. So that actually means that for, I think about a year usually, you can keep paying for your health insurance that you had with your company. But now you also have to pay the half that they were paying. So I actually found when I left my job that Cobra was a lot more expensive than just getting my own health insurance. So I didn't choose to keep going with it, but a lot of people do. And it's a nice, easy option to just keep doing that for a lot of people. So it's good to know how much Cobra is and know whether or not it's something you want to opt into.
Yeah, Michelle, that's a great point. And I think for some people, maybe they're seeing specialists or they have a bunch of appointments or doctors that they don't want to change. In that case, Cobra makes a lot of sense. Another tip that me and Michelle always talk about is leaving on the 1st or early in the month if you can. We understand that's not always a choice. But if you leave on the 1st, at least you can have health insurance for that whole month afterwards, and that buys you some time to figure things out.
Yeah, that's something to double check with your work. But something I've noticed in all my jobs, and this is true for a lot of people's jobs, is your health insurance usually goes until the end of the month, regardless of when you leave. So if your job ends on the 1st, you'll have it until the 30th, the 31st. If your job ends on the 29th, you also only have it until the 30th or the 31st. So if you're going to quit your job, that's something to keep in mind. But also know that you might actually have a little bit of time where you're still on your company's health insurance, which if you like your health insurance and you're not sure you're going to have the same benefits afterwards, book those appointments. The month that I left my job, I saw the eye doctor, I saw the dentist, I saw everybody. So definitely try to make that a priority too, because your health is so important. And unfortunately, at least in the US, if you have to pay for that stuff out of pocket, it is insanely expensive.
Yeah, Michelle, healthcare is a really important thing to think about.
Yeah, and just so you know too, if you are in the US, if you lose your job, that is considered a life-changing event. So even if it's in the middle of the year, you don't have to wait until the end of the year to enroll in health insurance. So within typically 30 or 60 days of losing your job, you can still apply, go to something like healthcare.gov, go to a marketplace for health insurance and go look at the different options you have, and you should have the option to apply for that.
Michelle, all this money talk is making me think about planning your finances.
Oh, yes.
When you leave your job, thinking about money can be stressful because you're not going to have it come in the same way you did before. But we often underestimate how much money we have, and when we don't have a job, oftentimes how much money we need changes as well.
Yeah, and luckily, Sammie, we talked about runways last week. And so if you want to figure out exactly how to plan for how long your money will last you, I definitely want to point you towards that episode. We really talk about how to basically look at how much money you have in your net worth and divide it by your expenses so you can see exactly how long you can last without a job.
And another episode you might want to check out is our Tracking Your Spending episode. Because maybe you've been thinking, oh, I need to do that tracking your spending thing that Sammie and Michelle are obsessed with. And you didn't get to do it. But once you lose your job, it becomes a little bit more important to track your spending. And it can actually be inspiring because if you realize you're spending less than you expected, you can actually not work for longer than anticipated. But you only know if you track it.
Yeah. Plus, it helps you make different decisions. Like, for example, when I lost my job, tracking my spending and knowing my expenses really helped me make the decision to move back home because I realized that I would be able to save money, and that was important to me because I wasn't working. So tracking your spending and looking at your runway are two ways I think that can really help, one, ideally bring you peace of mind and give you a realistic sense of how long your money will last you. And also, you might find out that you do need to do something so that you can pay your bills, and it might just be that extra fire you need to be like, okay, actually I do need to find a job soon. Let me go and get back on the job market as soon as I can.
Exactly, Michelle. Which brings us to the job hunt. The first thing I'd actually like to say about the job hunt is know how much time you kind of want off. You might not know exactly, but let's say you're not thinking you immediately want to go into another job. Maybe you want to take a month or 3 months or 6 months off. Think about that before you start applying to a bunch of jobs, because it can be really easy to feel insecure right after leaving a job and want to immediately find other things to do. But if you're not planning on returning to work for another 3 months or 6 months, you might want to hold off a little bit before you start applying like crazy.
One thing Marlo talks about is really knowing what you want, what type of company you want to go to. Don't necessarily just go and start applying blindly. Do a little bit of an exercise and say, okay, these are the things I'm looking for in my next job. Maybe ideally I would like to have a manager that I really like, a mission-driven company. Whatever it is to you that's important so that you can focus your search instead of coming from a place where you might be immediately freaking out and just applying to everything.
It's true, Michelle. Marlo, she had a bit of the jobby mindset when she talked about knowing what you want. When I say jobby mindset, I mean she kind of made it so that the job would be fulfilling your whole life dream situation. But it can even be things like a job that gives you more free time than you have right now, or even maybe not having a job. So think about your values and think about how you want your life to look before you, out of anxiety and fear, start committing to different jobs.
Something else Marlo talks about that I really liked is as soon as you lose your job, start writing down your accomplishments from that job. What were some of the good things you did, compliments you were given, positive feedback you received, awards you ran, projects that you worked on? While it's still fresh in your memory, get all of that down. Type it up in a document and save it, because you'd be surprised how quickly you forget all of those things, especially once you start going on the interview cycle again. Plus, it's a really good way to counteract your negative self-talk. After losing a job, maybe you don't feel so great. Maybe, I know when I lost my job, I was like, dang, I suck. And so it's nice to actually go back and collect some positive information, be like, okay, actually, these are some really good things that I learned and lessons that I took away from this opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to write down situations that you experienced which exemplify certain skills and keep that in a document somewhere that you can use for interviews in the future too. You don't want the interviewer to ask you, what was a difficult situation that you dealt with? And then your mind immediately goes to some terrible scenario. You can't get the bad scenario out of your brain. And you're like, it was when I was extremely negligent because I wasn't paying attention. No, they want the difficult situation that was actually a good situation. So keep a list of those things.
And if you're still in your job, you should totally keep a brag document. A brag document is basically just a place where when those things happen, you write them down, those compliments that you get, again, those cool things that you're working on. Everybody should do this at least once a quarter, tracking that, because let's say you're in your job for 10 years and then you were let go. It's going to be hard to remember those things you've done over the last 10 years. But I find when I'm actually tracking that and then I'm able to look back at it after, say, a year or two, I'm always like, oh crap, I've been doing all this cool stuff. And now I can actually reference to my recruiters and people who are interviewing me all of this cool stuff that I've done.
Exactly, Michelle. And back on that negative self-talk, I think it's really good to look at what those thoughts are. Because a lot of times the self-talk that we have, especially that negative self-talk, it can be related to the workplace environment and a little bit of that natural capitalistic viewpoint of you're valuable if you're productive. And so observing that and seeing how that has kind of infiltrated your brain will also help you kind of break away from the matrix as well.
I really like that, Sammie. I think another thing too is let your network know that you're looking for a job. Post it on LinkedIn, share with your old coworkers, your family members, whomever it might be. Again, with this negative self-talk or mentality, sometimes it can feel embarrassing to share those things. I think I was nervous at first when I left my job to tell people I wasn't working. And for me, it didn't matter because I knew I wasn't going back into the workplace. But people who knew I wasn't working almost couldn't help but offer me opportunities to connect with people they knew. Even my managers at my old job, when I was leaving, they made connections for me. So it's really, really good to let your network know, hey, I'm back on the job market. I am open to a new opportunity. Try to be specific. I'm looking for this type of job. This is what my experience is in. And you never know who's going to see it and who's going to be able to help you.
I completely agree, Michelle. When people find out that you left your job or that your job ended for some reason, they get excited and they want to put you in a new job. And that's really thoughtful of them. But they can't help you unless they know that you're leaving.
That being said too, Sammie, one thing I would like to add, if you are going to post publicly, like on LinkedIn or something, do keep your message positive. Sometimes you can go on these websites and see people who, hey, I get it, they're upset, but it looks bad if you say bad things about your employer, I think honestly, even if you just seem really resentful in those posts, again, you're entitled to your feelings, but a place like a professional networking site like LinkedIn is not going to appreciate that you lost your job and then you turn it around and you're talking smack about it, or you have a really negative attitude. Keep that for your loved ones. You want to seem positive and you want people to think, wow, this is a really great positive person. I would love to recommend them to someone I know. You don't want them to think, oh, they seem kind of angry and yeah, I get why, but do I really want to be the person who's attaching my name to them? Not really. So be positive. Do not post publicly and say negative stuff. Honestly, I've heard on the other side, like people looking at that stuff and saying, oh, wow, I can't believe these people left this company, and then started just saying really negative stuff about them or leaking information or things like that.
That's good advice, Michelle. One thing Marlo said that I really liked is she said, look for jobs that you like and then copy down their job descriptions and then highlight the words that keep repeating, those keywords. And this is something that you, Michelle, have actually told me in the past, and I had never thought about. I think especially being in healthcare, I'm like, yeah, if I'm a PA, you kind of know that, like, what I do. But some of these, like, resumes and
applicant tracking systems,
right? Michelle would know because she worked for a job company. These things, like, they just look for certain words. So they're literally like you are trying to like SEO your resume. So just take all those words, get them into your resume or your LinkedIn or whatever so that you can be somebody that matches up for those job searches.
Yeah, I worked for a job site for 5 years. I used to talk to recruiters. Like, I've talked to hundreds of recruiters, and I have worked with every single applicant tracking system. I know all of them. And let me tell you something. They're not that advanced. People act like these are these like crazy advanced systems, and they're always like you can literally pay somebody to help you with your resume and make it more quote unquote ATS friendly. All it's doing is matching the keywords on the applications. There is no fancy AI in the background. There is no fancy nothing. If on the resume it says, we're looking for an account executive, your prior experience should say account executive. Don't say salesperson or account manager or anything else. You want those words to match, especially if it is the right job title. If they say they want someone with experience closing business, I will put in my resume, I have experience closing business. Word for word, try to use the same language. I promise you, that's literally it. It's not fancier. Honestly, most of them are even worse than that. Like this, the technology behind the software is honestly a nightmare, but that's all you need to do to stand out.
That's right. Listeners, Michelle has a very specific set of skills when it comes to applicant tracking systems. And the applicant tracking systems are nothing like our love and our friend ChatGPT, who would find the best applicant with a great personality just by looking at their resume.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. The better the software, the more expensive it is, and no company is paying for the good stuff. I promise you that. So, Sammie, what are our takeaways today?
Takeaway number 1, take a breather. Relax. Don't get all, what's my job gonna be next? Don't get all
what am I
jobby
gonna
mindset.
do? How am I gonna pay my bills?
So 3D, you know, stay in the 5D, stay lit. You know, you wanna keep your vibrations high. Don't freak out. Losing jobs happens all the time. Tim Ferriss, I think he got like fired from like all his jobs. And
Tim Ferriss did get fired from all his jobs.
Like, what's up with that? He seems like he'd be such a good worker. I don't get it.
But you know what? That's the thing, though. It doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't.
You can easily lose your job. And we're saying breathe, don't worry, all of those things. But also what we're really saying is let yourself experience those emotions. It does suck. We're being a little facetious. Like, it does genuinely suck. It's stressful. It's a major life change, a major transition in your life, especially if it happens unexpectedly. So give yourself a little bit of time to just breathe, process, talk to people, and it's just okay to do that. I think sometimes we forget to be compassionate to ourselves.
So true, Michelle. And get practical. Talk to HR, get their email, get their phone number. In fact, if you got one thing from this, get your HR's email and phone number. Because once the crying's done, you're going to be like, why do I have a $50 fee on my 401k account every month? And that's when you need to talk to HR.
Amen. You give the details. I have shamelessly asked them every single question. I've confirmed things. I'm like, we got 30 minutes together. Let me tell you, I'm ready, okay? It's important. Talk to your HR too.
Yes. And don't forget about health insurance.
Health insurance.
I got a little bit lazy about this, and there was a brief period of time where I didn't have health insurance.
And do not let that happen to you.
Don't let that happen. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take the motorized scooter the next block over because I can't afford that kind of accident.
And I mean, I think, Sammie, you always emphasize this to me. Our mom does too. Like, people who work in healthcare really understand and appreciate, again, especially in the US, like, if something happens to you, it costs an insane amount of money. Like, yes, health insurance is expensive, but you got to look at the numbers. You got to see if there's something that you can afford, because to go without it is just so scary. And you have options. And so it's just good to know, like, hey, I lost my job. My life is changing. I need to go to healthcare.gov or Cobra or whatever it is you choose to use and set something up.
It's true, Michelle. It's honestly a risk that is unacceptable to take, because I'm not even talking about your health. It will bankrupt you. So don't mess with it. Legitimately,
it will bankrupt you.
Which brings us to finance. Look at your money. Look at how much you have. Count how much money you're spending and see how much time can you take off. It can actually be a fun activity, because maybe you can take a bunch of time off. Take it. Take a break.
Take a sabbatical.
Take a sabbatical like Michelle. And now a sabbatical is a new non-sabbatical for her.
It's true. Unemployment can be rebranded as sabbatical, guys. Just remember that.
So true.
So thank you all for listening to us today. Let us know if you have any tips or tricks, anything that we've forgotten. We would love to hear from you.
Yes. And if you've lost your job, or you're going through an interesting time and you have new insights, please tell us how it's going, because it's so, this time where, especially in tech, jobs are being lost. It's just so different than even before, when I'm thinking of the auto industry and things like that in 2007, 2008, when jobs were lost. So let us know. It's such an interesting thing to hear about.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to our Michigan people who suffered through the recession of 2006 to 2008.
It was a long recession for us.
It was. You might be thinking to yourself, it didn't start. No, it did. In Michigan, it did. So guys, we also wanted to move our after show to a community time on our podcast. We just want to take a little bit of time for our listeners who enjoy knowing a little bit about what's going on in our lives and different things that we're talking about, to chat about that in our community hour for a few minutes.
Welcome to our community hour.
I guess we can't call it community hour.
Oh, yeah.
Community show, community space, community segment.
Yeah.
Let us know if you have any good suggestions for names. The thing is, we had an after show and people were like, why are you saving this for 20 seconds after the show ends? So we decided to bring it into the show.
Yes. And this week in our community segment, we wanted to let you know that, one, it was our parents' anniversary.
Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary to them.
36 years.
36 years. Super long time. It's crazy. And also, it is the 2-year anniversary of Status Post Adulting. They're on the same day. It's also Michigan's anniversary of existence.
According to Instagram.
According to Instagram. It's actually Facebook. According to Facebook.
Yes, it's our parents' anniversary and their only grandchild, status post adulting, 2-year birthday. So if you have been with us for 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, this is your first episode, thank you for listening. We love you. Genuinely, like, I love you.
That was a lot.
Hey.
Maybe I have a void personality.
Okay, Michelle loves you. Sammie likes you.
No, I love you too. I love you an appropriate amount for the relationship that we have.
I guess some people are uncomfortable with their emotions.
See our attachment styles episode if you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, usually actually it's the other way around, so interesting.
It is usually. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, you might be thinking it's been 2 years. Good old status post adulting, the song, the name, the whole thing. I just so familiar with it and I love it.
Let it go.
Let it go. Let it breathe. You know, times are a-changing and so are things in our podcast.
Yes, and we're very excited. We will be revealing a lot of new things over the next couple weeks, so
we've been making a lot of changes.
We're making a lot of changes, a lot of which we think you guys are going to enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, changes for the better. It honestly, I'm impressed by how these changes have reframed my whole approach to the podcast, and I think it's going to be really good for the listeners.
And I want you all to know who's listening to us right now, before we rocket ship into fame, I will remember you. Our OGs, our original listeners. We love you once again. And
yes, we love you.
And we will remember that you were with us from the beginning.
It's so true.
Or the middle, or 2 years in.
The beginning.
The beginning. And on top of that, because you have been listening to us, let us know if there's anything you want to hear. We're going to be making changes, adding new segments, doing a lot of really cool stuff with the show. We're going to be really experimental. We've done this for 2 years, so we're really excited to try new things.
We're going to spice it up.
Oh, okay. It's going to get spicy. Like paprika, not like chili powder.
Like us.
Like us.
Because we're Indian, and Indian people love spices.
That's true.
Yes.
Like a chai spice.
Or if you are one of our people, Malayalis, chaya.
Chaya.
Mm-hmm.
So let us know if there's anything you want to hear. We're open to it. We'd love to hear from you. And other than that, have a great day.
And be sure to join us next time as we put down the rule book and we rethink the status quo.